Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. I'm your host, Fred Bell, the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, here with my antediluvian assistant, Greg Kenny. I got it. He's nodding. Greg, of course, is gives me all of my off-camera antics here. And we are outdoors. It's a beautiful day here in Palm Springs. We're socially distanced. And we're continuing to run through observation and patrol airplanes in the museum's inventory. Today, we have the Lockheed PV-2 behind me here. Big airplane. Greg, I don't know if you can actually get an idea maybe how big this airplane is, but it's not until I get up close to it that I actually get an idea of it. Fairly large airplane. Now, this is an interesting airplane in that it followed along. This airplane was actually started to be built by Vega. It was based on the Lockheed Lodestar design that was early in the war, and had its first flight in 1941. Now, there's a number of variants on this. So, Greg, I'm going to go through them. The B-34, the B-37, the PV-1 Ventura, and the PV-2, the Harpoon. That covers everything, okay? We're going to cover the whole gamut of them today. But they were first flown in 1941. It was built by Vega Aircraft Corporation. Now, Fred, fun fact, our B-17, Greg, is a Vega B-17. I think of the 12,000 B-17s-ish that were built, you aficionados can get into the numbers, I think about 2,500 of those were actually built by Vega, and our B-17 is one of them. Now, with the PV-2, and Greg has a great sense of humor, with the Harpoon, you will notice I am wearing the killer whale. Good job, Greg. You keep coming up with these amazing hats. I keep thinking you're going to run out of ideas, but I am going to take Shamu off my head here and toss him off camera. There we go. So we got rid of my very interesting headgear. But the idea was that we were trying to come up with, and we're outdoors today, so I'm like waving at the security people going by. If you're trying to figure out who I'm waving at, I have a little bit of an audience here today. But these aircraft were developed primarily to follow along. The United States had really good luck with twin engine medium bombers in an attack or a patrol role. And what I mean by that is like the B-25, the Boston, the Invader, and the Havoc, those types of aircraft. And they were a kind of a medium strike capacity. They'd be used in a maritime patrol role to go out and fight at sea or patrol at sea. They were also used as attack bombers, and the idea behind it was that you had strategic bombers, the big four-engine bombers, but there were targets that you didn't want to allocate that number of resources and men to, so you would allocate these twin-engine bombers or patrol airplanes to that. And then, of course, we had fighter bombers that, like a P-47 or a P-38, and in some cases the P-51, that were providing close air support. But the idea was you had this continuum of bombardment capacity, and this airplane pretty much follows on that from that basis of the Lodestar design. The Army was very interested in this airplane, and actually Lockheed built the B-37 under the designation, here we go, Greg, how we tie it all together, the O-56. The O-56 is what it was actually under the designation. So we have the O-2, the O-1, the O-56. The O-56 was never supposed to be used in combat. It was a training version of the airplane. There were only 18 of them built before they decided to allocate the entire production run to the Navy. So that kind of ended the Army's role. The PV-1 from 1942 to 1943 was used by VP-135 as a patrol squadron. Now, they were up in the Aleutians. We're going to talk about that a little bit for a second. The Aleutian Islands, the Japanese launched, the Aleutians were kind of the what do you want to say? The trying to draw away resources, the kind of, I wouldn't say a sucker punch, but to try to get the Americans to go, oh my goodness, the Japanese are going to invade the Aleutian chain and then end up in Alaska. And that was really to draw off our attention. And I think I have one of these exciting airplanes going by there, one of those fine aviation products. Let him get out of the way. But the idea behind that was to go up in the Aleutians, launch attack in the Aleutians, and where were they really going, Greg? They were really going at Midway. Now, what the Japanese didn't realize is that we had cracked the Imperial Naval Code, and we're not going to go too down into that, but the Americans knew where they were going, but we still had to respond in the Aleutians. But what that started was there were some Japanese bases up there in the Aleutians that the Americans continued to fly a maritime patrol, and we're actually going to tie our salute back into that. That flying up there, the Alaska flying was miserable. VP-135 and the other squadrons up there had a really rough go of it. You got to remember, there was no GPS. There's no really good navigation aids at that time. The weather can change on a dime. And I think if you look at operational losses versus training and weather losses, so let's say an operational loss is a combat loss, you're going to find that most of the American losses in that area were due to weather and mishaps because of weather-related problems. It's a miserable place to fly. So let's pick up. Now we're going to use, as I said, we're covering the whole gamut here, PV-1, PV-2. This model looks to be a PV-1 with a little bit more of a pointy nose, but we're going to cover the whole gamut here. But you can see big wing. Big wing. We're going to talk about the wing on this in a second. It had a fairly good crew complement of anywhere from 3 to 5 in the aircraft, depending on the configuration. It did have a top turret. It had a tail stinger in the back. It had a tail gun, and it had a bomb bay. I'll hold that up. Greg can throw up a plan view. It had a bomb bay that could carry a torpedo. It could carry depth charges. It could carry conventional bombs. It had another thing that was kind of cool that was significant with this type is had forward-firing machine guns. Now, the power plant on this was the R2800. Fairly standard power plant at that time, and remember we talked about power plants in a sense that, and the Americans and the Allies did a really good job. They basically picked power plants that worked and then really ramped out production on these. So the R2800 is in a whole bunch of different fighters, kind of like we were talking about some of the, or some, not fighters, but in American aircraft, kind of like the Merlins and the Allisons. And remember, they made decisions on where they were going to put those power plants based on resources. It was one of the things, that I would say is a strength of American production, and that is that if you look at the Axis, especially the Germans, we've talked about the Germans were chasing all different types of airplanes at the end of the war. Jets, different power plants, different designs, as they were kind of looking for the holy grail that was going to help them. The reality was they did a tremendous job in production. They ran out of men, but they also diversified their resources to the point that they never could really unify their production. Although they did turn out, for you aficionados, they turned out a bunch of aircraft. There's no question German fighter production at the end of the war was amazing given the level of bombardment they were under, but they didn't do what the Americans did as much, which is channel their resources. And this particular aircraft is absolutely a product of that, in that the centralized production, centralized power plant production, engine production, and so on and so forth, so that you got the maximum output. So these airplanes, the PV-1 was used by BP-135, 1942, 1943, and then they decided that they wanted to go to the PV-2. The PV-2 had a larger wing area, which could carry more fuel, and they got a 30% increase in the bomb load, Greg. So they increased the bomb load by 30%, but they ran into, the PV-2's first flight was in 1942, they ran into a problem. What was the problem? Remember, we've talked about how an inch is good and 2 inches is better and all the design things. Well, when they added all that weight with the fuel and everything else, the prototypes, as I said, flew in 1942, had a problem that they had wing buckling. They had a lot of wing buckling in this airplane early on. So what they ended up doing is they took that wing and they reduced the wing by 6 feet. And that solved the problem, made the wing a little bit more stable. It had, this airplane cruise speed was 230 miles per hour. It was fairly fast.
An airliner, simply didn't have the option to do it. However,
for the day, you know, we talk about an airplane has a hot wing, and what I mean by that is that at higher landing speeds and so on and so forth, notice the airplane performs better at higher speeds. This aircraft, with no question, had a hotter wing and a hotter design, and you know, especially when you're getting in and you're trying to get it into land and things of that nature. So it had a higher speed wing on it, a higher speed airfoil, but it was also used as a night fighter and again, maritime patrol. We're going to talk about civilian use in a second, but I'm going to put this down and I'm going to move over to my antediluvian assistant, or maybe my anti-delusional assistant. But today I'm going to move over to my stage 2. Now, Greg, I have serious misgivings about this. Greg is chuckling. I have serious misgivings about this. Greg has gone back to Lester's Fixins. And we know with Lester's Fixins, Lester has not been kind to me. But we're going to do stage 2 here. Let's see, serving size, 170 calories. I have no idea what's in this, but this is ranch dressing soda. That's just disgusting. Greg is really chuckling. Oh yeah, rubbing his belly. All right, the deal is I do this, but what I'm going to do today, we're going to use the non-magnetic can opener here to get it open, if I can make that happen. Wow, Lester got that one on there. Now, of course, Lester is not a sponsor of the program, and Lester, you are one sick person to come up with ranch dressing soda. What I want to do today is, as I said, all the folks that flew up in the Aleutians, Howard Bernstein, his name is on the airplane. This is an airplane that Howard and the Bernstein family, this is an airworthy aircraft. Howard caused this airplane to come here, his family did. It proudly bears his name and is in the color scheme of his squadron, which was VP-135. So I want to salute Howard and all of the guys up there. Most miserable conditions possible. Howard was a great guy, but he never forgot all those people he flew with. And so I want to salute all of the pilots and all the folks that were in that Aleutian Island campaign. Very, very tough going. And with that, I'm going to drink my ranch dressing soda. Oh, it smells it's nasty. Oh, Greg. You know, I ask sometimes why people bottle something like this. This is, Lester, no offense, this is disgusting. All right, we're going to try it one more time, as we always do. 2 sips. Oh, my word. Oh, that's gross. I'm sorry. Lester, that is disgusting. In fact, Greg, probably that is the worst of the sodas you've ever had me peruse on this. It was pretty nasty. Maybe somebody likes that. Obviously, somebody must like it if you're bottling it, I guess. But I can't say that ranch dressing soda is something that jumps out. So we got another fine AV. Oh, Southwest going by over there. They are now flying into Palm Springs, Greg. Free PR for Southwest. So PV-2 came along late in the war. Many design changes to increase the bomb load, increase the range, a number of improvements. It came along right at the end of the war. My numbers are that they ordered about 500 of them. There were only about 62 that actually made it before the end of the war to frontline squadrons, but they were all delivered. But that wasn't the end of the story, right? That wasn't the end of the story. They were then converted post-war by Howard Aero. There were a couple of them. There was Howard Aero, and there was Oakland Aero that offered a couple modifications. Howard offered the Super Ventura, the Howard 350, the Howard 500, the Eldorado 700, and Oakland offered the Centaurus. Now, what were those? Remember, we didn't have Learjets at that time, and we needed executive transport. These airplanes were really fast, and they're pretty big. I mean, they're pretty luxurious. Greg can throw up some of the modifications on these aircraft, but they were really the first kind of high-speed business travel. There were B-25s that were turned into coaches. There were A-26s that were done, but these airplanes were fairly successful. Howard converted, that was their business. I believe they're still around. Vega, Lockheed Vega, didn't last past, Fred, fun fact, did not last past 1943, was absorbed into Lockheed. Initially, they did a lot of subcontractor work at the beginning of the war, and the interesting thing about Vega actually was formed originally very early, late 1930s, to do work on light aircraft manufacture, is what they were really formed at. And then as the war started, they completely shifted their company and were eventually absorbed by Lockheed by 1943. But Howard went on. Greg can throw some of these up. One of the modifications, if Greg can find the picture, is there's actually a bullet nose on this one of these airplanes, and they actually put them on tricycle landing gear. They actually put them up on tricycles, so which is kind of interesting, but they are still flying. They are beloved. Now, this particular airplane came in right at the end of the war. It went to a boneyard, as a lot of these airplanes did, and then it was converted into a sprayer, if you can believe it or not. It was used as a sprayer for a period of time, and then it went into what they call outdoor storage, and we got it probably, it's been about 10 years. I'd say about 10 years ago we got it. This is one of the airplanes that I actually participated in, putting the color scheme in and getting the color on it and all that. Howard was still alive at that time. He's passed away. God bless him. And we actually worked with him to get the airplane back in its colors and get the Greg can pick it up on the walk around. But it is a really, really interesting airplane, and the fact that they're still operated. I've seen a couple of the Howard conversions. I think we actually had one here, Greg, at one time. It visited us. We bring in visiting airplanes. And so it has a life. It still has a life as an executive transport. Now, we have a number of Lockheed products, and if you wish to show your love for Lockheed, nothing better than being togged. You like that? Tog. The toggery. Being togged in Lockheed gear, and both in the Lockheed headgear and in the Lockheed shirt. This will, as I said, it makes you 15 miles an hour faster wherever you go. You will be the talk of parties, and people will love you on this. I'm not sure if all of that is true, the 15 mile an hour. People may love you if you wear this, but this is all really cool merchandise. You can go out on our web store and pick this up. It's really nice. I actually have this shirt, by the way, Greg. I own that. Very, very nice. But you can go out and pick that up on our website. But this is the overview of one of these light attack aircraft that was used during the war, both for observation and patrol. Now, people are asking where we are going with this. We're going to continue to go down observation aircraft lane, Greg. We're going to do a couple of drones, I think, next, both a Northrop drone and we've got a Predator. And then I think we may come back. Somebody asked for the B-25. We're going to have that B-25 in the lineup soon. So that gives you a little bit of a preview of where we're headed. So what I want you to do right now is go out and hit that subscribe button. Our subscriber base keeps growing. Like us on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Remember, we cannot restore these airplanes and make this stuff happen without your help. So Greg will throw in there a donation, our donation link. We have that text to give link now. We need your donations to continue to make these airplanes last into history. So I want to thank you. My name is Fred Bell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Have a great day.